Hello everyone, I'm Yatish Koil back again. I'm the founder of Yatish Management Show, where I welcome you all. In our show, I normally invite distinguished faculties, successful entrepreneurs, and experts from the industry who speak on best practices used in the companies, ideas, innovation, and research and insight for small, medium enterprises and family managed businesses. Today, we have our guest speaker, Mr. Kevin D. Wright. He's from Washington, D.C., US, United States. I welcome you all. I welcome Kevin.
Thank you, Yatish. I appreciate the invitation, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Kevin, before we begin, can I ask you that can you tell us about yourself so that my audience
Sure.
can come to know who you are and from where you are and what you do and all like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Yatish, um, I've been in industry now for, I guess, a little over a couple of decades. I've spent time leading in three Fortune 100 companies. That's Bank of America, Target, and U.S. Bank, the fifth largest bank in the country. For the last probably 8 years, I've had a leadership development and diversity, equity, and inclusion driving firm called Aris Insights Group, where I actually approach the whole notion of leadership and diversity from a bottom line perspective, always looking at how do we drive economics, I guess would be right up your alley.
Okay. Uh, can you? I think so. You have to Can you tell us about your city? What is happening right now? How's the economy going on? Because I'm from India and we are facing situation of lockdown. So we would like to know that what is happening in the other side of the world. Like,
Sure. So I am in a small city called Columbia, just outside of Washington D.C., about 30 minutes outside of Washington. As you might imagine, there's a lot going on from Washington all the way to here, and so there's been a spotlight on Washington D.C. in the past, call it 90, 100 days or so, if not longer, with much of what's happening around COVID, as you are well aware. And again, prayers to you and what's happening in India. With the advent of a new president, that drew a whole lot of attention in Washington D.C. area as well. Where I am in Columbia, it's a beautiful town. It's an interesting town. It was founded in 1935, I believe it was, by Rouse, a gentleman who worked for the housing administration. And quite differently than maybe those times, he thought that housing and develop, the ability to live, work, shop, and play in an area, in one area, would make good sense, and not just economic sense, but good quality of life sense. And the other thing that's quite interesting about that time, he wanted it to be a colorblind city. And so what that means is you might imagine in 1935, there wasn't a whole lot of colorblind happening in the U.S. in 1935. And the desire here was that it would be a multicultural city. And in fact, by design, if the preponderance of one race or another began to tip in one way or the other, they would actually halt sales and ensure that it was a diverse community. And so Columbia happens to be one of the very first communities where diversity was actually embraced.
okay, looking at your profile, since you have been working from long time in the area of diversity and inclusion, so can you tell us what is actually diversity and inclusion and how it is beneficial? Like,
Companies and that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely. So let's pull them apart. Let's look at diversity and let's look at inclusion. And so the first thing that I would say is diversity is really based on a myriad of human differences. And so, when people hear the word diversity, they immediately think of sex, they immediately think of race. But diversity brings a myriad of different attributes, whether that be certainly sex and race, but it's also religion. It's also your ethical value system. It's also your nation of origin. It's also your political beliefs. It's your gender. It's your ethnicity. It's it's where you grew up. It's also geographical, right? I spent about 15 years in Minneapolis, leading at the bank there and leading Six Sigma for Target. But prior to that, I spent the bulk of my time, in fact, all of my years on the East Coast, Northeast Coast. And so when you think about how business moves and how decisions get made and how overt and covert people work in Minneapolis in comparison to, say, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, Washington, D.C., that is very different. And so if you bring those two groups into a room, there's going to be a different sort of modus operandi, a different way of getting decisions made and of getting things done. And so, for instance, what I mean by that is the Midwest is they call it Minnesota nice, and what that really means is, they don't want to say anything to offend, or they don't want to say anything to, dare I say, hurt someone's feelings, right? And so it's very often very difficult to get an emphatic no in the Midwest, whereas in the Northeast, I would say it's less. People are less interested in how you necessarily feel about a decision, and so you will get a no, and you'll get a no exponentially more emphatically. And so, if you think about that way of doing business, whether you're in the Midwest or you're in the Northeast, that geography and that geographical nuance is going to find its way into whether that be a boardroom, whether that be an executive leadership meeting or a manager's meeting. How decisions are made and how work gets done in those two geographic areas are going to be different. And so that, in fact, is also diversity, right? So if you take me and put me in Minneapolis, or you put me in Philadelphia or Washington, D.C., how I get business done, how I get decisions made, it's going to be very different. And so inclusion is the practice or policy of ensuring that everyone that's in that particular room, in that company, in that organization, has an equal opportunity to participate. And so whether that be an opportunity to participate in advancement, or an opportunity to participate in development, or the chance to apply for a role and that sort of thing. The notion that everyone has equal opportunity to do that is what we call inclusion. I would caution the audience, though, I would caution your listeners to be careful of what we call abstract liberalism. And what that means is, for instance, let's say there's a position that everyone is able to apply for. However, because of certain marginalized groups' historical context, they may not have the full capacity to apply for a position just like everyone else. So, for instance, if we take someone from a marginalized community and we put them in, let's use Minneapolis, for instance, and that person from that marginalized community does not have a car, sort of doesn't have the same makeup as the individual that maybe lives in the suburbs and can maneuver around the suburbs, and then you create an opportunity or role out in the suburbs to apply. What happens is that individual in, call it Minneapolis, doesn't necessarily have the same opportunity to apply for a role in the suburbs, because maybe there isn't mass transit to get to the suburbs, and that's where we see, historically how discrimination has occurred with marginalized communities and mass transit. And so oftentimes it was by design. I mean, if you go back far enough, depending on where you wanted people to be able to move or to be able to travel, right, you would put mass transit there. And so there's an opportunity in the suburbs and there's not mass transit or an opportunity to get there, you can actually preclude a population from being able to apply for certain positions based on where you place them. So that's what I mean by this abstract liberalism, where we say, hey, everyone has an opportunity to apply, everyone is on equal footing, when in fact everyone is not on equal footing. And so, we have to be careful that we are mindful of the contextual beginnings of everyone that's applying for a role, just like we have to be mindful of the notion of unconscious biases that transpire when someone walks into a room, ensuring that you don't have, rater bias or interview bias. And so hopefully I've given you an idea of what diversity is. Difference, right? Difference from a range of human differences, and inclusion is simply ensuring that there are practices or policies in place that allows marginalized individuals, those members from marginalized communities, that we're being cognizant and thinking about them as they have the opportunity to apply. Just like, say, one small example might be someone that has a physical disability, right? Making certain that they have access to the ability to apply by virtue of ensuring that they have the ability to access the building, right? So if you have a physical handicap and there's no way for someone, say, in a wheelchair to get into the building, well, you've precluded them from being able to apply. So you really can't say everyone has equal opportunity to apply if you've not allowed in a practice or policy way the provisions to ensure they have an adequate opportunity to actually gain access to that role. Does that make sense?
Yep, yep. Further, I want to know what kind of companies are in. Can we go for it? Like, is it can like it is only for the large companies where they can place where it different kind of people in their company, or a small company can also go for it.
Oh, absolutely, small and large. The fact of the matter is, every company needs to pay attention to this, and the reason being is because it really does impact your bottom line. If you're talking about a large company, say for instance, a bank where I worked, if we reduced attrition by 1%, that was worth $100 million. If you take that number to a smaller company and you can reduce attrition by 1, 2, 3, 5% because it's less people to actually impact, you're still going to have an impact to that bottom line, right? If I know that driving diversity actually increases the opportunity for my ideas to be productized, right? We've seen the statistics say that more than 70%, you have an opportunity to productize exponentially more quickly than other organizations. And so, whether I'm a large company or a small company, if I want that opportunity to, say, bring a product to market faster, right, I'm going to drive diversity. I'm going to drive inclusion, right, because that's going to have a net effect on my ability to bring that product to market. So whether I'm large or whether I'm small, I'm still trying to bring a product to market, right? And so it doesn't matter your size; it really matters your organization, the culture of your organization, ensuring that you have an inclusive culture.
Okay. Now, further, next question is like, since you have been working very long time in this area, so how you have contributed to this area and created value where you can say that, okay, I've done something impacted on helping my clients or other companies to do this kind of things.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple of ways to think about this. A very easy way for me to quantify this is if I go back to my days of being the head of segment emerging markets and segmentation, right? One of the areas in that role was multicultural banking, which was African American, Latino, Asian, and the LGBTQ population, right? And a very quantifiable way is driving that from about a $900 million organization to almost a $2.5 billion organization. So that's a very quantifiable way. Or another way of thinking about that is driving that 170% in revenue, right? So that's a very quantifiable way because those dollars came from African American, Latino, Asian, and the LGBTQ plus population, right? So that's a very quantifiable way of identifying the change that was made, and that was through the economic downturn previously. The other way that I would do that in this particular role now is probably a little more murky in that I work with organizations, and I don't often always get to see the full project come to fruition, right? So if I'm helping an organization drive their retention, right? And of course, it's always confidential, so that makes it a little difficult to talk about as well. But if I'm working with an organization, I may work with them in order to create the model that they're going to implement within their company around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that may include what's the model that they're going to use, what's the strategy that that are going to execute. It could even mean helping them to identify whether they're going to do ERGs, employee resource groups, and how they'll utilize them, how often, what's that cadence that they'll meet. It could be even setting the mission and the vision of that organization. But once I'm done, say, with that project around setting their mission and their vision for the organization, I could be moving on to another organization, and they're left to sort of execute based on that, with the opportunity for them to touch base and reach back out as they have questions. But it's really, in that scenario, it's about setting the foundation and setting the direction, and then I'm gone.
Okay, can you tell us something, case study on this area, if you have written anything or something on this diversity and inclusion?
Well, I tell you what, there's a myriad of data out there, and there's a myriad of organizations that actually are engaging. And so I think what would be the easiest one to talk about is one that's come out here recently from Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs has said they're going to spend $10 billion with Black women. Now, some might say, well, wait a minute, why would they spend $10 billion with Black women? In fact, I've asked this question of some clients in the past, and they thought, well, it was great PR, or it was great for that particular market. They wanted to tap into the Black market and gain some of the resources of the Black market. What they actually did was they worked with American Express, and through their research, they realized by applying $10 billion to impact 1 million Black women, they ran the opportunity of increasing GDP by 1.7%. And so, this $10 billion could turn into more than a $19 trillion impact to the U.S. economy, right? Not just to Black women, but by focusing on Black women, they could actually drive a larger outcome for the U.S. economy. So that's one case study that I would say that's in the market. It's very relevant today. It's just getting underway, and I think it's a phenomenal opportunity.
So, in future, how you look at this? What can be the scenario? Like, it will it is only for multinational companies, or anybody can go for diversity and inclusion?
Absolutely. I want to make sure that I'm. So you're asking who can actually engage in diversity and inclusion from a company standpoint?
Yep.
Every organization has an opportunity to engage, because we've seen statistics show that companies that actually have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program see a 33% lift in profitability. And so if you think about it, one of the mantras that I would always say when I was leading the bank, I would say you need to mirror your market. And the reason you need to do that, if I bring people around the table to solve a problem, and those people have firsthand knowledge of that problem, they're going to bring a deeper set of intellectual capital to that solution. Whereas if I bring a homogenous group around the table and they only have the perspective of reading about the problem, they're not going to know all of the nuances of the problem. So what happens is by bringing a diverse set of people around the table to help solve that problem, you're going to have greater insight. You're going to have greater intellectual capital within those individuals because they live the experience. And I actually saw it firsthand when running the organization at the bank. I worked with, frankly, I worked with a bunch of older white guys, and they had a perspective as to what we should bring to the market. But having grown up in Philadelphia, inner city Philadelphia, and those experiences, I brought those with me to help to drive the product development. And so my perspective on driving product for diverse populations is firsthand knowledge, as opposed to some of the people that I work with who didn't grow up in inner cities, who didn't grow up where I grew up, who didn't have the perspective, the insight, or the vantage of someone that looks like me and has my experience. And so when I say that everyone should engage, I mean everyone should engage. If you're solving a problem around economics and you don't have someone that understands economics in the room, you're probably going to take a long time to get to a solution that's applicable. And so that's all diversity does. It brings all of the brain power of individuals with differing experiences to solve one problem. And we've seen statistically where it increases the speed at which you bring your product to market, and it increases your profitability because you make less mistakes.
Okay. The last question I want to ask is like, what insight you can tell to the small and medium enterprises and also the people, family managed people managing their own businesses. So what is your advice to them?
Sure. I would say, it's interesting. My advice to them would be quite simple. We probably have a natural, we know we have a natural inclination to want to, as humans, to want to surround ourselves with people like ourselves. The way that you can combat that and win based on statistics is to ensure that you bring people to the table that don't look like you, that don't have the exact same experiences that you do, that don't necessarily agree with you on everything. And so what I would say oftentimes, if in an interview process, people will say, are they a good fit? Are they a good culture fit? And that question is really saying, are they homogenous? Are they just like everyone we already have? And so the one thing that I would suggest people do is when the antenna goes up and it says, I don't think this person is a good fit, I would suggest and I would implore people to dig in a little deeper to try and understand, why is this person not a good fit? Do they think differently than you? Do they look differently than you? Do they approach problem solving differently than you? And that may be the very person that you need on the team to bring a very different perspective so that you have a more rounded perspective as opposed to a one lane approach or a more homogenous approach. That's a very easy way to leverage difference for the benefit of your organization.
Okay, so I would like to thank you, Kevin, for coming to my show and giving us some insight and idea about diversity and inclusion. And further, also we see that if any opportunities come, we may invite you and so that you can speak in a group or individually like that.
I would be honored.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Have a good one. Yeah. And good luck to India.
Yeah.